catastrophic climate change. And so the climate safe movement is working on global campaigns such as Save the Amazon Rainforest. And it's also joining Greta's group, Greta Thunberg, who started Fridays for a Future, school strikes, on March 15. So there's going to be mobilizations in almost 1,000 cities in 80 countries. And so climate safe chapters will be joining the youth strikes on Friday, March 15. And we're also working with Extinction Rebellion. And both Greta's group and Extinction Rebellion started only 6 to 8 months ago, yet they are bigger than all the animal rights groups put together. And I think we have a lot to learn from them. And I was talking to Roger Hallam. He's the founder of Extinction Rebellion, and he's vegan. And he said, what we do at our vigils, at slaughterhouses and factory farms is very important, but it's about movement building. It's about, people coming to the vigils, looking the animals in the eyes, and that will make them go vegan and also make them become activists and organizers. And that builds the movement. But he said, what we also need to do is disrupt society on a massive level. And that's what Extinction Rebellion does. So as soon as they started, they had 6,000 people close down 5 bridges in London. Everybody in London and the country knew what they were about and why they were doing it. So they have a mass action planned for April 15, and they want to close down London for 5 to 6 days around the Parliament building. And their goal is to get tens of thousands and 100,000 people on the streets. I share their goal. I was always frustrated, like 7, 8 years of, SAVE organizing. It's been beautiful, it's been wonderful. And, but at the same time, I feel frustration because I want everyone to see what we're seeing. I want mass consciousness affected. The only time, that's one way of mass consciousness. But
Anita,
we also need to think in terms of disrupting society as a whole.
Yes, and I want to show once again, here it is, the Los Angeles Times featuring the Save movement on the cover. There is a pig going to slaughter. Sadly, that poor being, that innocent being is now dead. None of these animals come out alive. It was an amazing article. There is the headline, and it reads, "In the Year of the Pig, offering some comfort to the doomed." Now we've got a caller coming in, but let's go to Ellen Dent of Animal Alliance Network. You were there the night that this amazing reporter, Gustavo Arellano, came with his camera and documented your vigil. All the work you do, Amy Jean Davis, Anita, and you, and all the hundreds of people, indeed thousands who were part of 600 vigils around the world, sort of crystallized in that one moment when finally the mainstream media blackout wall fell and we got these animals and these activists got the coverage they deserve. What did it feel like?
Amazing. I'm in shock with Amy as well. I was not expecting us to get even in the print in the paper, but much less, the front page of this paper of the LA Times. So we definitely broke through, and we broke through completely. And it was so brave of Gustavo Arellano, the writer, and for Rob Gauthier, who is the photographer, to come out and to document this and share it with everybody. And, I think so many people saw this paper and it really makes them think. It makes them think about their life choices, makes them think about what's happening to these animals down there. I mean, we had an incredible turnout last night. It was absolutely incredible. We had so many new people come out. People came and they saw, and hopefully they'll tell everybody what's happening to these animals. Hopefully they'll share on their social media, because social media is so powerful. And, hopefully we can keep doing this. Hopefully we can keep the momentum up. We invite any press, any papers, anybody to come down to a vigil and share this story as well. We invite any social media accounts, everybody. We want everybody to come down there. We want everybody to see this is a absolutely life-changing experience. And once people know the truth, it's not something that you can unsee or walk away from.
And if you see me looking down, it's because I'm sharing this video. To Ellen's point, the more people we can wake up to the horrors of animal agriculture, modern industrialized agriculture, the more likely we are to save the planet. And it's a race against time. We are racing extinction. Let's go to the phones. Josh Goldstein, I know you were at the vigil for Jane Unchained last night. What's your question and what are your comments and feelings?
Oh, well, hi, thanks for having me on. I guess, what's next? How do we get even more coverage? How do we get TV coverage?
Excellent question, Josh. Let me go to Amy Jean Davis. This was a breakthrough, but what is next?
So what is next is, thanks to the SAVE movement, we are going to be working with a PR firm to continue to get this conversation in mainstream media, whether that's on TV, in more newspaper articles, or radio interviews, podcasts. We're going to hit it as hard as we can and try to keep the door open so that more and more people walk through, and we change that blackout, that the media says, okay, we ran this cover story, we were very brave to do so, and the feedback has been really positive. And so, we're hoping that that's what these different outlets, TV shows, talk shows, and radio shows see, that this will actually get an audience to tune in, because this conversation, this topic of animal agriculture, what's happening to the animals, what's happening to the planet, what's happening to the people, like the workers and the people that live in the neighborhoods near these factory farms. This is an important topic. People are going to tune in, and they're going to be, and we're hoping that that's what the media outlets will care about, that their audience is there, and people aren't going, oh, I'm just going to turn this off, I don't want to listen to people talk. So that's what we're hoping is going to happen in the next couple of months, working with this PR firm.
So Ellen, you were saying you noticed an increase in the number and the different kinds of people who were showing up. I mean, so many people, and I think, the people who go every Sunday and every Wednesday are my heroes, and that includes all of you. It takes me about a week to recover from going to a vigil. I have to restore my faith in humanity, because when I see those pigs and I make eye contact with those pigs, and then I think of people who I know who eat them and who are disconnected, it crushes me. And all I think about is, why don't they get it? Why? And I have to really change that to, they're not vegan yet. And we are making the change. But you notice maybe a slightly different crowd as a result of this article. It brought people in who are not the courageous activists who normally bear witness. It was them plus another group. Can you tell us about that, Ellen?
There's a lot of new faces last night. We definitely had at least about 10 to 15 new people come. So it was just great. We had the regular people that come week after week and have made this happen, because it's not about the organizers, it's about this whole community coming together. Like Amy and I didn't do this by ourselves, or Anita, it wasn't by ourselves. This is a group collaborative effort to make this happen. And I like to kind of go back a little, because this was aired on Spectrum One News on TV. So there was an interview with Bobby Sudd on Spectrum One News. So we did get a little bit of airtime on TV, and we'll take every little bit. We'll take an inch, we'll take a mile, we'll take whatever they'll give us.
I was at an event yesterday, and it was in a hotel lobby, and there were TV screens up. And it was so horrifying to see the number, because it was just like the 4 big channels, the number of animal consumption commercials. Literally, I got the absolute, I already knew this intellectually, but it really hit me that Americans are being conditioned 24/7. There were 4 big screens, and it was ribs and chicken and, burgers and ribs and chickens and burgers. And then one commercial came up for Carl's Jr. for the vegan burger that they're now pushing. And it's a very clever commercial with like a cowboy doing yoga and saying, hey, when the winds of change come along, you better take it, and showing the veggie burger. And it really lifted my heart, because it was soul crushing to sit there and watch these commercials while everybody's just talking and eating eating animals. And that you could see the entire social sort of vicious cycle. People are being conditioned, they're eating it, then they're getting the diseases, the animals are dying. And as Dr. Celeste Rao says, we have a profit center, a culture based on death, suffering, death, disease, and destruction. Death for the animals, disease for humans, and destruction for the planet. And those are our profit centers right now. And we have to switch those profit centers. So, Anita, where do you see, I know the SAFE movement has grown exponentially. Where do you see this happening? How fast do you see it happening? The Economist has said 2019 is the year of the vegan. If you can answer that, and then we'll take a short break.
I think what we're going to do is like the next stage is like work with media companies like Amy and Ellen are doing, and yourself. And we're also going to think in terms of disrupting society at large. So joining Extinction Rebellion, and, you know, when you inconvenience people for hours, you know, and disrupt society, they will pay attention. Because I know, Jane, you're frustrated. You're saying, why doesn't everybody else see that? Well, we need to disrupt society and then for them to pay attention.
Yes, absolutely. Now we're going to take a short break on Voice America, but not on Facebook. We are still live on Facebook. We're so excited to have with us today Ellen Dent, Animal Alliance Network, Amy G. Davis, Los Angeles Animal Save, and the co-founder of the Save movement, Anita Krajnc from Toronto. Whoa, thank God for technology, right? Okay, we're going to take a short break on Voice America Radio. We'll be back, but stay right there because we're still live on Facebook.
All clear, good job.
Okay, so one of the things that I think is so fascinating and I'd like to talk about on the other side of the break is the Green New Deal. And I haven't had a chance to research this, but apparently they are talking about reducing meat consumption, because I saw a clip of Fox News attacking, we being a nonprofit, we can't talk politics, but we can talk about what's in the news, attacking Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez for trying to take away their hamburgers. And I haven't had a chance to really explore that yet, but does anybody know whether the Green New Deal is really addressing the big elephant in the room? Is that speciesist that nobody's talking about, which is animal agriculture? Does anybody know that, Anita?
Well, we've seen Alexandra speak about Meatless Monday. She's talked about that in schools, talking about how she loves oat milk, and that is the healthiest of milk. So we've seen her speak out on this, and I'll leave it to you all about the details of the Green Plan. But I think she's an incredible young politician who knows how to use social media, and she's an absolute genius, and she's very smart, and she's very principled. So I believe she will advance this cause.
Because that, I think, would be the crucial breakthrough. It's so fantastic to get this article in the LA Times front page, but there's also, you know, the media, MSNBC, the most progressive channel. And frankly, Jane Unchained has had to call out MSNBC for completely ignoring animal agriculture. And we actually called out Rachel Maddow, who I watch all the time. I'm a huge fan. And yet she talks about eating turkey for Thanksgiving, and she's got such a large turkey, she couldn't fit it in the oven. And we had to call her out on that, because you can't be attacking somebody. You can be attacking somebody else for denying climate change. But when you're eating animals, you're a climate change denier in essence. Okay, let's get back to the Voice America show.
You are listening to Jane Unchained. To reach the show today, call in to 1-866-472-5795. That's 1-866-472-5795. You may also send an email in to janeunchainednews@gmail.com. Now back to the show.
All right. And we have two other special guests, Little Rico, who is our rescue from Puerto Rico, and
Monster.
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 Yeah, and you know, it raises the issue. Americans love their dogs, and many Americans and many people around the world consider themselves animal lovers. And yet, as a society, we are killing more animals at a frenzied pace than has ever been killed in the history of humankind. More animals are killed in 4 to 12 hours than all the human beings who have died in all the wars in the entire history of humankind. Something very wrong with that. Let's go to Paige. Paige, what's your question or thought, Paige? Paige? All right, well, Paige will be back with us, I guess, in a moment. We were talking about, I think, something very, very important, and that is connecting the dots of disparate movements into a greater whole. You've got the racing extinction movement, the anti-extinction movement. You've got the student climate change sit-downs that are taking off in Europe, led by this 16-year-old girl, Greta Thunberg. You've got the SAVE movement. You've got the climate SAVE movement. And the Green New Deal is also starting to address animal agriculture. So how do you see it all coming back? Amy Jean Davis, how do you see it coming together?
Well, I think it's really important to note that there's a lot of different styles of activism, and there's a lot of different facets to this problem of animal agriculture and all the problems that it causes. So I think it's important that everybody does their different style of activism, hits it from every side, and then we all come together to make collaborated efforts together. And if we could do that on a global level, that would be incredible. But we all need to focus on our strengths and work together. But don't worry about whatever it is, your kind of activism, you do that type of activism because it's going to speak to someone. But we need to, everybody just get busy and do your part. And then we have to collaborate and coordinate and figure out how to have global actions all together.
I agree 100%. Paige, you're back. Your question or thought?
What I was coming first to acknowledge all four of you ladies for the powerful.
Okay, you're breaking up.
Just
okay.
Keep going.
Okay, so let me say this. I think we've stumbled upon something because, you know, honestly, the law of unintended consequences, I think, is super, super important. And you've got this climate change movement happening in Europe. You've got the SAVE movement. You've got the Green New Deal, which is, you know, a part of the whole sort of greater spectrum. If we could connect the dots and then throw in, for example, the union workers who have been decimated. You know, I'll tell you, I'm a member of SAG-AFTRA since 1973. Thank God. All right. I know, I appreciate a union. The union's there for me. I have a safety net because of the union. And yet we have decimated unions. And look at what's happening to people who work in these industries. The PTSD of having to kill every day, not just things like carpal tunnel syndrome, but drug addiction, domestic violence. If we could somehow connect the unions as well, so that you have giant climate, you have unions, you have animal rights activists, and then it becomes this greater whole, that's when I think the MSNBCs of the world are going to have to acknowledge that you can't talk about how much you love sticking turkey in your oven and then attack, for example, the Trump administration for pulling out of the Paris climate change accords. That's hypocrisy. So we've got another caller, Lisa Carlin from Westlake Village. What do you have to say, Lisa?
Okay.
Hi, Lisa. Go ahead.
Hey, everybody. I just wanted to comment that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was protesting outside Nancy Pelosi's office, and she was holding a climate change sign. So that just seems incredibly powerful.
Yeah, I think that and I'll bring this to Anita. The most important thing, it's like a caboose, a train. Here's the train of climate change. Here's the train of workers' rights. Here's the chain of animal rights. If we could somehow attack this powerful climate change caboose to the animal agriculture piece, it would take us to a whole new dimension. And we're getting close. with the activism that's sweeping across Europe, and the people who are leading it are vegan.
That's right. Greta, 16-year-old Greta, is vegan. She also does not fly airplanes. She's very principled. So she started a movement where she just 6 to 8 months ago, she refused to go to school on Friday and protested in front of the legislative building in Sweden. And she was alone. But then the next week, people joined her. And now it's a worldwide movement with almost 1,000 cities participating in the Friday, March 15th strike. It's called #Global Strike this week. And Roger Hallam, he was a horticulturalist. He noticed that climate change was affecting the growth of the vegetables. He's an academic at King's College, and he started Extinction Rebellion. And he said that the main components of Extinction Rebellion are the people that are concerned about climate change or environment, the people concerned about extinction, as you said, the racing extinction component, and then the vegans. And what I want to do is distinguish our strategies in the SAVE movement, which are holding vigils at slaughterhouses. So it's because that action is a movement building action. It's not about disrupting society as a whole. So I want to be very clear about strategies and tactics. It's a very important strategy for movement building. So, recruiting new activists and new vegans. But in the civil rights movement, in Gandhi's movement, in the anti-war movement of the 60s, where you had 100,000 people participating, what you need to do is disrupt society as a whole. So that's a different tactic. So he said, Extinction Rebellion does not hold protests at coal power plants because it only affects a few people there. What he does is they hold events in London and disrupt traffic for hours or days. Their plan for April 15th is to disrupt London for 5 days. And they entered the public consciousness immediately. They're only six to 8 months old. They're very new. They started in October. In fact, they are, just over 6 months old.
Are they going to bring animal agriculture into the equation so that these so-called progressives who are covering these issues will also have to address that?
Exactly. He was on a call with DXC and SAVE this week. And he's going to be on a call in 2 weeks, and he wants to talk to decision makers, and he wants to influence the US because Extinction Rebellion is very strong in various parts of Europe. It's not strong in the US yet. So he's reaching out to SAVE, to DXC, to see how we can form a coalition. Because as he said, there are these three components: the climate, the extinction, and the vegans, animal activists. So we are a key component of this movement. And he also he has a history of working with labor unions. And I absolutely agree with you. This coalition needs to include all these groups.
Absolutely.
Well, if I can say something about the union aspect, I think it's a fantastic thought. Unfortunately, most of these companies utilize undocumented workers. They're not going to be able to join a union. And I tagged Connie Spence because she's an activist who's doing the Vegan Justice League, and she's trying to get everybody to focus on the legislators and find which ones are paid off by big ag and big pharma, because it's these companies that are responsible for hiring these undocumented workers. She has a number straight from the USDA. It's somewhere around 78% of the workforce there are undocumented, and they cycle through them in order to not get caught. Well, how do we unionize a workforce that's 78% undocumented? It's a form of incredible human oppression that is fundamental to the success of animal ag. So we need to bring that down somehow.
Oh, that's a really good point, and it's a tremendous challenge. I want to talk a little bit about the media, because we're so excited about this front page article, and I'll show it again for those just joining. Front page of the Los Angeles Times. There you see a pig who, sadly, that poor innocent animal is now dead, along with all the other thousands of pigs that go to that slaughterhouse every day. And there is the headline: in the year of the pig, some comfort for the doomed. This was a breakthrough. But, you and I have discussed, Anita, and maybe you would like to weigh in on this, how because you've said, well, we do get coverage. Yes, you get a lot of coverage in Canada. Canada's a little different, though, I think, Anita, in the sense that I don't think it's so the media, for whatever reason, I don't know whether it's more like the BBC in England, doesn't seem to be as dominated and controlled by the advertisers the way, especially local and national media here are dominated by the advertisers. The used to be that the advertising department and the news department would never meet. And if somebody from the advertising department came up to a reporter and said something, that was a scandal. But those days are over. And now you see these companies, which are under increasing pressure because the young people are going to social media and they're not reading the papers and they're not watching mainstream TV. They are more desperate than ever to keep the advertisers they have. Do you see a way around that aside from social media? And let me ask you about that, because you're out there all the time and you see, weren't there times when there were reporters who came, covered the Vigil and didn't put it on the air?
Yeah, I believe Amy was interviewed by Channel 7, correct, Amy?
Channel 4.
Channel 4. Channel 4,
yeah. And I even had Joaquin Phoenix and Rooney Mara with me. They were next to me for this interview and nothing, not a peep.
And not only that, but when the Hurricane Florence crisis happened and these poor animals, hundreds of thousands, millions, over a couple of million at least, maybe 3 million drowned in these concentrated animal feeding operations. And a whole group of people, and you were involved in this, Anita, quickly mobilized. We held a news conference on the steps right there, very convenient for the media. The media came. I will say, thank God Jane Unchained was live because we documented it. The media came, they videotaped it. They never put it on. And it was environmental groups and animal rights groups saying, enough with these CAFOs. We don't want any more CAFOs until we can figure out what's happening with the climate, because these 500 and 100-year storms are happening every couple of years now. And there are the cameras rolling. They never put it on. So this really shows why this is such a huge breakthrough, and we applaud the LA Times. But are there strategies for encouraging? How do we take this and make it a trend, not an aberration? Let me ask you that.
We keep talking. We keep inviting them to come, and we can just hope. We can hope they'll air it. We can hope that, they'll put it in print, they'll put it in a story, they'll put it on a website. So we can reach out to them. We can do media press releases. Amy was saying you're working with a press firm, which is amazing. We got to invite every personality we can get out there with a large following. We need to make this mainstream. It's time. It's time for people to see the truth on a wider scale. So at a certain point, they will not be able to ignore this. If we keep exposing people to it, they will not be able to ignore it. And this will be the top story until we can make this stop.
And yeah, speaking of personalities or people coming to the vigils, I want to shout out to Moby for being at the vigil last night. And he's already posted on his social media. He took his own photos as a photographer, and he was there for the pigs. So we're grateful to him for being there. He understands it. He talks about it. He's got a vegan restaurant that donates all the profits to animal rights. And so he's a stellar example of a celebrity who uses his status and his power and his influence to help the animals and help the movement.
Moby is extraordinary. He is always there, always giving, and putting himself out there on the line. I wish Moby would run for president. That's all I can say. It's so interesting when we're talking about all these trends. And I had a thought that I just lost, but media. This was my thought. Okay, every social justice movement, and you're a student of history, Anita, so you might be able to elaborate on this, has experienced the same thing. I was reading how long before women got the right to vote, 9 women approximately went and surreptitiously voted illegally. And the New York Times, in calling itself out, wrote an article about this. When that happened, barely discussed it and denigrated the woman and called them something like little ladies and basically ridiculed them. Additionally, when I went to the Civil Rights Museum and I saw why the African-American churches were so powerful and political, it's because the mainstream media, the newspapers of the day, refused to cover what was happening in the African-American communities. So the African-American churches essentially became a hub for community organizing and politics, and almost like their own news operation, very similar to what's happening today with social media. So is it just par for the course, Anita?
Well, I think that what Ellen and Amy said is absolutely true. We need to use this opportunity of the front page of the LA Times and have a concerted campaign to continue that coverage, so have a domino effect. But secondly, a strategy is to have mass disruption of society and do something like Extinction Rebellion is doing, and we are about to join forces. So I think doing those two things will go a long way.
I love the fact that you're going to join forces. And Anita, I know that you have a lot of experience in your field. You're a PhD, and your field, amongst many other things like Tolstoy, is community organizing. Fantastic, because I can't make toast and coffee at the same time. So I'm not the community organizer, but I think it's fabulous that you are. We're going to take another quick break, and we're going to stay live on Facebook. And when we come back, I think, let's let the conversation take it where it will, but it's probably the most important conversation happening on this planet right now, because we are going to hit a crazy, crazy, crazy cataclysmic wall with climate change in a decade if we don't get a handle on animal agriculture. It's literally the survival of the planet depends on it. So everybody watching, think about how you can help. We're going to take a short break, maybe play the music if you can, A-Rod, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes, but we'll stay live on Facebook. All right, so we're live on Facebook. I think it's fantastic. Of all the things that I've heard, along with this incredible article, and I want to give a shout out again to Gustavo Arellano. As a person who's been in media for 40 years, I know that reporters can come, say they did the story, and do a terrible slanted job, and ridicule and make fun and do, put it down and make light of it. And that's their own defense mechanisms, their own reactions. And I want to applaud this reporter for not doing that, because I've seen it happen over and over again, where particularly if there's animal stories, they ridicule. What was his attitude when he was doing the reporting? You were there.
Unbiased. He wanted to stay as unbiased as possible while he was there. He wanted to basically just report what was happening there and be fair. I don't think that this article was really slanted either way. He just literally reported what was happening there, what activists said, and you don't need to slant it. It's right there when you come and you see, you'll know the reality. So we'll take the reporters that want to come out and ridicule at this point. We'll take that PR. Come on out. You want to come out and ridicule and show some more people? Sure. Because those people are going to see through that. They're going to see through that ridicule, and they're going to want to know what's really happening. And it may spark even more curiosity, even more reporting. And then maybe we'll get some more fair reporting.
And we just got a comment from Janelle Butler, who's the mother of Genesis Butler. So proud of everyone who is part of the Save Movement and Animal Alliance Network. Los Angeles Animals Save. We're coming back right now.
Voice America Influencers Channel.
You are listening to Jane Unchained. To reach the show today, call in to 1-866-472-5795. That's 1-866-472-5795. You may also send an email in to janeunchainednews@gmail.com. Now back to the show.
All right. And of course, we have our lovely mascots here. Is that speciesist? No, they're not mascots. They're guests, right, Rico? Rico's a guest. He says no comment. Talk to my publicist. And Monster's a guest. All right. We're going to go to a caller, John Wolf in North Carolina. Your question or thought, John?
Hi. My question or comment is we have 90 million dogs and about 86 million cats in the U.S., and they eat mostly meat. And there's about 10 times that in the world. So shouldn't we be discouraging pet ownership?
Excellent provocative question. I'll just let each and every member of this team answer. Who wants to go first?
I'm happy to take that one. Okay, so first of all, I would discourage pet ownership. I don't like the word pet, but I would discourage guardianship of animals if there weren't already so many animals that are already existing that need care. So what we need to do to combat that is enforce the spay and neuter laws and make sure that people aren't breeding more dogs and cats into existence. We already have way too many. And I don't know about you ladies, but I can only think of a couple people that I even trust to take care of my animals. So what does that say about most of the people that we know as far as their ability to take good care of these dogs and cats? So we need to stop the breeding, absolutely stop the breeding completely, and make sure that people are spaying and neutering. And so that eventually, these animals won't be in their position where they're vulnerable to us, and whether or not they have a good caretaker is, who knows? So we should be stopping the breeding, spaying and neutering. And also we need to have our dogs on a vegan diet. They're omnivores. They thrive on a vegan diet. So that is one way we can massively decrease the amount of meat that dogs are eating. And cats, the conversation is there as well, even with veterinarians, that cats can be vegan. I'm looking forward to lab-grown meat being a product that we can actually feed our cats, small or big.
Right now, we're holding Wild Earth dog snacks made of koji, and the dogs go crazy for this. It has a very, I guess, meaty, I haven't eaten one yet, but supposedly it has like a meaty texture, but it's made with koji, which they told me what it is, but I've totally forgotten. It's some kind of fungus, but there's plenty of ways to feed these animals. And I'd also like to see a birth control pill. I would like to see a birth control pill for animals in general. We could put people on the moon. We're sending people into outer space. Why can't we come up with a birth control pill for animals? It would solve so many problems. It would solve a lot of problems as factory farms transition from animal agriculture to plant-based agriculture. And there's this whole question of, well, what do we do with all the animals? And they can sometimes keep breeding depending on how they're kept. Well, one thing is, if we had a birth control pill for animals, we could eliminate that. We could reduce that problem. It just seems crazy to me. And I have heard, urban myth that there is something out there, but it's being kept from the public because somebody wants to patent it and make a ton of money, which, I have no idea whether that's true or not, but that's sort of a conspiracy theory out there. But what would you say? And there's a little monster to, yes.
I agree with Amy. We should phase out pet ownership. And we should definitely be feeding our pets a vegan diet if they can thrive on that. Like cats, they have different needs. So hopefully that lab-grown meat comes out soon. Yeah, I'm basically on the same page as Amy with this.
And Anita?
So even for cats, there are vegan diets that are very successful. A lot of my friends have cats that thrive on a vegan diet. They just need like one key component called taurine, I think, or something. Taurine. My cat was on a vegan diet as well. And towards the end, when she got sick, I returned to sort of an animal flesh diet for a while, which I felt really badly about, but she was a rescued cat. There are, our world is full of contradictions, but the point is that we need to do the best we can, and we can do a lot better than we're doing.
Yeah. And
our dogs are on VDog, by the way. We love VDog. They absolutely love it.
And I have a cat who eats AMI, which is an Italian food for cats. And that's also very delicious, and she loves it. Now, let's get back though to, because people, again, and the reason why not only do we have these wonderful animals here because they're just great television, great video, but also because it reminds us that we love to say we're animal lovers, and the very people who are walking their animals saying they're animal lovers are basically co-signing the torture and killing of many, many animals. And so I think that great to get all these groups together to fight climate change and include the animal agriculture component. That's a huge piece of the puzzle, and amazing work, Anita, making that happen and bringing those groups together. But the other part of the puzzle, I think, is to help people break through that disconnect. And of course, there are incredible documentaries like Earthlings, probably turned more people vegan than anything in the history of humankind. Also Cowspiracy, What the Health. But this idea of having people, what I think of it is as a social pact. Culture has made a pact. We're not going to talk about that suffering. We're not going to talk about that pain. That pain doesn't count. And if we all agree to that, and this has happened in other oppressive societies in horrible times of incredible mass sociopathic behavior, I think we can all figure out what we're talking about, whether it's Nazi Germany or slavery or the oppression of women that is still going on in in certain parts of the world today. But it's a social pact. We're not going to talk about it. And we have to break that social pact. So during the cold weather snap of the polar vortex, a neighbor was walking by and she said, I feel so sorry for all the people. And I said, I said, and imagine all those animals, those pigs and cows riding in open air trucks to their slaughter in open air trucks when the wind chill is 50 or even 100 below zero. And the reaction was fascinating. She just went looked at me like that, and then walked off. It was like I had broken some kind of social pact. I had said something that, the truth that dare not speak its name, right? Anybody want to reflect on that?
Yes, I would love to reflect on that. So I have this term that I don't know if it's a real word, it may not be, but I've coined it. It's called culturized. So you're talking about a social pact that people are engaged in. However, they're not willingly engaging in this pact. They are being culturized by their culture. So they're raised in a culture, and the nature of culture is to not question culture. Culture it essentially programs you to like this and not like that, to be for this and not for that. So you're essentially programmed to believe certain things. And in America, we are culturized to believe that dogs and cats are companions, and pigs, chickens, and cows and other animals are food, which is not based in truth. It is something that people do because they're encouraged to not think about it. I'm going to tell you, this is how we do it. Don't question it. And so when people want to say that vegans are bringing along our propaganda and that we're a cult and that we're trying to brainwash people or force people, they're literally speaking to what they've already experienced in their life from their culture. And so if you want to create change, and if you really want to call yourself an open-minded person, you have to be willing to question your culture. And when you do that, you're going to find all kinds of things that are not based in truth. Because if we choose our food based in truth, we're going to look at our physiology. Humans physiologically are herbivores. We are nothing like an omnivore. And so when we look at it based in truth, we're going to go, well, let me base my food choices on my physiology. Let me base my food choices on how it affects sentient versus non-sentient beings, non-sentient being plants, sentient being all animals. Let me make my food choices based on how it affects the planet. Let me make my food choices based on how it affects other human beings, whether they live in my neighborhood or not. But culture doesn't let us do that.
And Janelle Butler said, so true, Amy. I am Mexican and Native American, was culturalized to believe that pig flesh should be part of a daily diet. I think the biggest cult in the world is the cult of meat eating. Yeah. It is the cult. And so, you know, whoever frames the debate wins the debate. They say that in politics. You can see that, you know, in our political life, where one person, even with a horrible argument, if they get out in front and they frame the debate, everybody else is on the defensive. So, Anita, what do we do psychologically and culturally to, I see the change happening. I agree with the economists that 2019 is going to be the year veganism goes mainstream. And one of the most promising hints is that now I've gone into numerous restaurants that are not vegan. They don't say anything about vegan, but guess what? 95% of their products are vegan. It's happened to me in like 3 juice bars already, and a couple of other places where, in other words, they don't even say it's vegan. It's like, you don't say meat restaurant. So that, I think, the normalization of plant-based eating. But what's your thought, Anita?
So yeah, so I think there's a mainstream publication that said it's the year of the vegan. Was that The Economist?
The Economist.
Okay, so they are right. It's the year of the vegan activist. And as Ellen, Amy, Jane, you all have done in terms of the LA Times coverage, I mean, the LA vigils are about vegan activism. They're not just about going vegan, they're about vegan activism. It's the year of the vegan rebellion. That is how we are joining the climate save groups. You know, we're joining Extinction Rebellion. And so it is a year of a rebellion where the citizens are asking for governments and the media to tell the truth, and we believe that the population at large should oversee these changes that need to happen to stop catastrophic climate change. And it's the year of vegan protein. You see all these companies emerging, you know, that are concerned about health, and even slaughterhouses are buying vegan protein products such as Maple Leaf and Tyson. So it definitely is the year of the vegan.
Well, we have to wrap it up there. I want to thank you, are all my heroes, and everybody is saying that on social media. Just right on, keep going. And to all those people who are saying that, I say join and get involved, because this is a race against time. And thank all of you for doing everything you do. And let's give a shout out to Gustavo Arellano for an amazing article. Wow. Journalism the way it should be, brilliantly written, fair, and I think the start of a breakthrough in mainstream media coverage of the animal rights movement and the Vigil movement in the United States. So thank you, Amy Jean. Woo! Thank you, Anita. And thank you, Ellen. And thank you, Rico. Thank you, Monster. Bye.
All clear.